just looking at the numbers. The thing is, you've got to remove your ego and your emotion from what's actually going on because you can blind yourself thinking you're the best. And then you look at the calendar and you look at your bank account and you're like, it's not matching up. And so it was the idea of lead, set, show, hire. What is that? What are those numbers? And when you see the weakness, I know in our first meeting, it was like, okay, here's a PCLC, and this is what causes this number to go up. This is what causes this number to go up. And we saw the thing that would benefit us most was the unconverted leads, getting more sets. So once we had that in place, I mean, that was the thing that we saw. Look, if we can move this hinge just a little bit, all of the waterfall overflows that will come from that are going to really ramp things up.
Hey, law firm owners, welcome to the Your Practice Mastered podcast. We're your hosts. I'm MPS.
And I'm Richard James. And today, MPS, I'm excited because we're here with longstanding members of our community, not only outstanding performers in what they do in the EAY world, but also a captain in our community. It leads our members by volunteering to help them get to the next level. And probably most importantly, good friends and our attorneys for our business affairs. So we got a lot going on here in this conversation. We know these folks really well, and I'm excited to share their journey. Mike and Catalina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Mike.
Happy to be here. One of the things I like to kick off with is, obviously we had a wonderful introduction there, but what's something that maybe not everyone knows about you?
All right. Probably people who really know me well know this, but the ones who don't know that I'm a recovering real estate-aholic, and I have recently fallen off the wagon. So I have some property for sale in New Braunfels if you're interested. But basically, that's something that not a lot of people may know about me is I like real estate. Kat, how about you?
Oh, Mike, I think maybe some might know or some not, but I'm certified in aerobic group exercise in kickboxing. I love to dance. I love to be active. And as Rich always asks us, if I could only, during our sessions, our partner club sessions right at the beginning, it's a tough answer for me because I really love to support my husband. But so if I could only is own my own cardio studio and one place for the kids to work out and one place for the parents to work out. And we do double team and we go. So those are my grand vision is having a cardio studio.
I like to dance. Nobody very well enjoys watching me dance. So I'm like, and I've seen you dance. And so you should absolutely have your own studio, Catalina, but I should only come perform in that studio or work out in that studio when there's nobody else there because I don't think.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Well, it's a cardio burn. No judgments at all.
Good. And so, Mike, I heard, by the way, New Braunfels, I was just reading an article and it just started touting New Braunfels as this robust place that's taking off on the heels of the success of Austin market or whatever. And I thought to myself, man, Mike's got it going on. He's a really smart investor. So you had talked about that like long before it was a hot market.
Yeah. So we've been in New Braunfels for going on 3 years.
Yeah, but I want to say that you and I even spoke about it before then. It was like on your radar. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. Central Texas.
Got it. And was the real estate investing, did that come from a bridge off of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad conversation from Kiyosaki, that book?
A little bit. That was one of the starting points. And then I got hooked up with some friends. And the biggest thing was my first real estate deal after reading a book. I left the closing table with $3,000 and the property. And so it was one of those like, now you think you're good and you just happen to be lucky. So
were you an attorney when you started investing in real estate, or did you invest in real estate before you became an attorney?
no, I didn't have money until I became an attorney.
Got it. Okay. Very good.
Why don't you actually talk about that a little bit? What were the high points of your journey as an entrepreneurial attorney?
Okay. Well, I'm one of these rare birds that has had his own practice since day one. So back in 95, I got my bar results and hung up my shingle and have been on my own in one fashion or another. One of the big turning points came around, you just kind of slowly make mistakes and bumble your way through and slowly grow. And as more people know you, you get more but we got to a ceiling that we just couldn't get past. And I talked to my CPA and he said, what's your hourly rate? How much did you collect this year? And he says, you only worked 26 weeks last year. What was happening is I was heavily involved in Rotary, heavily involved in scouting, and heavily involved in the law practice, but only one of those three was paying me. And so that's what started me trying to find, hey, I need to get a better system to be able to grow this practice, which is when I met Mark,
Right.
blast from the past.
Yeah.
And then we got our golden ticket and joined the Partners Club. And since then, we've pretty much tripled our top line number. And so, it's been about developing systems. But that's been the entrepreneurial journey, was starting off from just muddling your way through understanding some of these concepts, but not being able to be consistent. We had an email newsletter, and it was great because I'd send out a news blast and all of a sudden people were calling. Then they'd call and I'd start getting busy with doing the work. So I'd stop sending the email blast. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't have any work. I need to do another email blast. So that lack of consistency was always that roller coaster, feast to famine. And with your all's help, we've been able to level that roller coaster to be something a lot more palatable and don't get queasy riding the roller coaster.
So did you start having Catalina help you right away, or was that like a progression? What did that look like? Because I know you only have a couple of kids, right? So that was
just 7.
How many kids do you have?
7.
We have 7 together. It's a blended family.
Blended
Mike
family.
says, it's yours, mine, and ours.
Yeah.
But I actually was in my own right. I was in the corporate field, very high corporate level. I worked for a health insurance company and I did grassroots marketing, and I had a huge territory in South Texas, and I did a lot of traveling. And so I would help him here and there, with the e-newsletter, but it was very much a little bit here and there because I had my own job. And then things happen and that opportunity fell and the company went in a different direction. And I was 6 months pregnant with Charlotte. And, it's okay. Well, yeah, I was going to stay at home. I was going to ditch you guys, but I guess I'm going to have to do it 3 months early, on your terms, not on mine. So then, slowly but surely, I never would have been a stay-at-home mom. With my other kids, I was the worker and I'd get the very minimum off and have to get back to work, have to have them in daycare at 2 months old.
Right.
That was my life. And so I relished in like, oh, let me be a stay-at-home mom. And I enjoyed that for about 2 years, helping here and there. But when Charlotte turned 3, that's when I really came on board pretty much full time. And that's where get that consistency of having, more of a cadence in your marketing and not relying on Mike's Monday night grocery store runs was another key moment in his marketing, which was it's grassroots. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's having that cadence of things that people can expect.
Yeah. It's such a blessing for your team, for you to have brought your grassroots marketing experience into the team. It's funny, so many times I witness successful husband and wife teams, while it has its challenges, right? I tell everybody, look, I've been working with my wife. We've been married for 29 years. We've been working together in business for 29 years. And if you're working with your spouse, I always say congratulations and my condolences, because there are good times and bad times. And so that has its own set of challenges. But when I see successful couples win, it's when one focuses on one level of expertise and one focuses on the other expertise, especially when one can do the marketing. MPS, do you see the same thing when you're seeing it from the couple relationships we see succeed?
Yeah, just having a clear path for who does what, because when you start trying to work over one another, I feel like that's when it gets a little bit messy. So making sure each person has a dedicated role. And yeah, oftentimes I actually find, based off of a lot of the law firm owner couples that are in our program and that we speak to, it's usually beneficial when one isn't an attorney. Right? And being able to have the thought process and mindset and perspective from a non-attorney, I find that actually helps fuel a lot of those practices to grow a little quicker than even 2 attorneys would grow in some cases. So I think having the different mindset and perspective is important. Mike, I wanted to ask, Although obviously we appreciate the kudos, joining the program, tripling the top side. What was that first tactical thing that you guys did to start to move the needle forward?
All right. So I'm sure Kat will agree. Yeah, she's giving me the sign. We hired a phone person. That was the first thing. And that was Kat was involved. And that started the hockey stick, started things going up because now somebody else was following up with the calls. We had this huge jump as soon as we did that because somebody was following up with unconverted leads. Because when we started was like, how many sets and shows? Everyone who sets shows up and everyone who shows up hires. I'm an excellent salesman. And it's like, okay, well, can you look at the actual numbers? And you start tracking and you're like, oh man, I suck. I really need to do a better job because, we aren't selling. And then the people who say, hey, you know what? Look, I'm not ready right now, but I need you to get back to me next week or whatever. And then they didn't call me. Well, I guess they never got ready. No, you need to call them because they're never going to call you again because that means I have to write a check. And so that was, I think, the first brick in this pyramid was getting the phones fixed. Kat, I don't know if you have something else. I know you interviewed our phone rep and hired him. So
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely it's a little bit different having in the estate planning world. The sense of urgency is completely different from, you would say, bankruptcy or criminal. And, I'm a little jelly of that in those practice areas because it's a sense of urgency right now. And here it's not at all. It's something the least thing you want to think about. So having that phone person and being able to pick up, that's a big burden that they're picking up. And it's fantastic to have someone, and it adds to that trust marketing as well. Like, oh, someone's actually answering the phone and they're calling me back, and just layers and layers and layers upon trust. And then they, eventually, we've had some leads that take 3 years to close, and you just have to wait patiently. And it's a very long game.
Catalina, I would say that thank you for that insight, by the way. Mike, you chose estate planning with a business to business transactional bend in the asset protection realm. And you've done a great job for us under that umbrella. And so the interesting thing about that is you said the downside is there's no third party pressing against the neck of your client saying they have to get something done typically. Now, that's changing, and we'll probably hear about that a little bit later. But what we do know is the good news is that because there's no necessarily ticking time bomb or clock, your unconverted leads who didn't convert could go back 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because it's not like they did something with somebody else necessarily. It's more like they just didn't do anything. And so you have a much longer tail. So the negative is, in bankruptcy, they're going to take their house at some point, right? And criminal, they're going to go to jail or they're going to have to pay a fine. And in family law, they're going to take their kids or their spouse is going to divorce them. I mean, every single practice area primarily has some window to it. In estate planning, the negative is there's nothing pressing them. The positive is that we've got a longer tail to follow up with them. But MPS, the phone, just as a tool, I know that technology is changing, and I know email has been here forever, and texting is something people do, and AI is all about the rage, but the phone is still the most powerful tool. Agreed?
Still the most powerful tool, and it's still predominantly the main source for most law firms that leads come through. And so you've got to be able to be equipped to handle the phone and to handle it properly. And I don't want to dive too deep here because I want to learn more about the business side of things, the business law side of things, and how that's going to play into things. But I'm curious, Mike and Kat, you guys said the first tactical thing was the phone. What actually inspired you to take that leap? What made you actually take the leap to find a phone person?
Yeah, and to be clear, I want to +1 on MPS's question. While we appreciate any kudos you might want to think about our program, don't worry, that's not the goal today. The goal, I want you to deliver a message to that person who's listening at 2:00 in the morning. Why should they be inspired to do this?
Without giving you kudos is just looking at the numbers. The thing is, you've got to remove your ego and your emotion from what's actually going on, because you can blind yourself thinking you're the best. And then you look at the calendar and you look at your bank account and you're like, it's not matching up. And so it was the idea of lead, set, show, hire. what is that? What are those numbers? And when you see the weakness, I know in our first meeting, it was like, okay, here's a PCLC and this is what causes this number to go up. And we saw the thing that would benefit us most was the unconverted leads, getting more sets. So once we had that in place, I mean, that was the thing that we saw. Look, if we can move this hinge just a little bit, all of the waterfall overflows that will come from that are going to really ramp things up. It's going to be the most bang for the buck. I don't know if you have any other insights on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think also one of the things that really I think was pivotal for us is we had to do something. That's the type of pressure that we felt upon us, that it's do or die. Whatever you need to do something, and you can't afford not to do anything anymore because it's just not working. And you have to take that leap. We said to ourselves, we cannot afford not to do this. And we couldn't afford anything. We were Bernardiner not able to get a ticket to the plane. We got a ticket to the plane, but it was like, okay, really tough. And that was the turning point. It was do or die. You need to do something. And what was really nice, and that was such a great first step. And he's not with us anymore. He moved on to bigger and better things. Great guy that helped us out with the phones, and he had a great charisma, great people skills. It was that client relations type of thing. And oh my gosh, what a breath of fresh air. And boy, did we have unconverted leads to give him. We were able to still get that list. We were sure we didn't have our numbers, but we were able to pull something together. And more, he got I don't know the exact numbers, but it was 3 months of condensed unconverted leads being extruded out, into the next month. And then the waves of that. And then they're like, wow, I really like this service. And then you get the referral. And, so it's a great tipping domino. And there's a lot of other steps after that.
Yeah, well, that's part of the problem, right?
Good start. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody gets a little daunted, or it's daunting to look at all the steps. So to boil it down to a very simple step for somebody who's listening and maybe they're struggling, whatever your practice area may be, Kat just gave it to you. You might not have your numbers. You might not know what's going on. Find somebody who can work the phones for you, who can pick up the phone and make outbound dials to your unconverted leads. What are your unconverted leads? Go back to your emails, go back to your phone records, go back to your notepad where somebody was writing messages down. So there you have it. Kat and Mike just gave you this very simple solution. Wherever you are, if you're listening to this and you're struggling and you want an answer, don't get caught up into the daunting tasks of what's happening next. Just pay attention to 2 simple maneuvers. 1, find somebody besides you that can pick up the phone and call all your unconverted leads. What's an unconverted lead? All those people that didn't do business with you that you've spoken to in one way, shape, or form. Go to your calendar. Go to your handwritten notes on your notepad that somebody took messages for. Go to your sticky notes. Go to your phone records. Just start picking up the phone and dialing it and having conversations with people who called you at one point who were interested, who for whatever reason didn't decide to move forward, and see if they're still interested. Don't worry about timeframes. Don't worry about practice areas. Don't worry about all the limitations. Just do it. And what Kat said, or Catalina, sorry, I call her Kat. What Catalina said is that necessity is the mother of invention. They had to do it. That, to me, that's it. MPS, you and I, we were in this stage in the first quarter of this year. We just couldn't crack the code on figuring out how to get our niche, law firm owners, to bubble up and be able to raise their hand and do what they wanted, get them to the next stage in our world and ask for help. And we were banging our head against the wall thinking, oh, maybe it must be the niche. Maybe it must be something else. But necessity forced us to figure it out. And we did, right?
We did. We had to take a leap of faith into a coaching program like we do, and also just the willingness to test, to just constantly test new things. And all of that combined created a solution that worked really, really well. I'm going to jump the gun a little bit here because I think I know what the answer might be to this, and I'm curious to open this conversation. But Mike and Kat, what's got you excited? What's got you fired up today?
Well, I've got a juicy one, so I'm going to let Kat go first.
Okay. No, you go first.
So I'm excited. We just got our approval letter from FinCEN, which is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is part of the Department of Treasury, to be able to have an API for system to system. And I know that's blah, 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 blah. But basically, it will allow our software to have permission to submit certain forms. And that's kind of this new federal law. And I think we can talk about that in just a minute.
I don't think a lot of people know what this new federal law is, Mike. Why don't you tell them?
Sure. So the Corporate Transparency Act is a federal law. It took effect January 1, 2024. I think the Department of Treasury really needs a better marketing arm because nobody knows what's going on. I've been on TikToks and Instagram and all of the socials to try to get people to realize it's out there. But basically, it's a law that requires all business entities that are registered throughout the United States to submit the information for the business, being the name of the business, the jurisdiction of formation, the address, and the tax ID for the company. And then for each beneficial owner, name, date of birth, address, and a copy of their ID. All of
so they're asking for beneficial owner information.
Correct. So what's a beneficial owner? That's where we get into a sticky part. Beneficial owners, anybody who owns 25% or more of the business, or somebody who exerts influence over the business. Okay, so that second part could be, and the statute specifically identifies the president, the CEO, CFO, COO. So even if they don't have any equity, they have to be disclosed. And so in some of our cases, the spouse is very involved in the business. We need to disclose the spouse. And so those are things that a lot of people don't know about. The good part and bad part about this is the penalties. So there's a late fee of $500 a day. And I just attended a CLE yesterday, and it's adjusted for inflation. So by January 1, that fee will be $570 something a day for not filing per entity.
This is a fee to the federal government.
Yes. That's just for being late. Now, if they deem that you intentionally didn't file, or you intentionally fraudulently filed or omitted something intentionally, then it raises to the level of criminal. And that carries a fine of up to $10,000 and or up to 2 years in jail. And so sometimes I'll have a conversation with a client, and what if I don't really want to do this? I go, well, just make sure you plan on having all expense paid 2-year vacation under the care and custody of the federal government. And they're like, okay, so I guess we need to get this done.
Or I tell you what, you could not pay me the small amount of money you pay me to help you make sure this happens. And here's a card of my criminal attorney down the road, and you could pay him 20 times what you're going to pay me to defend you when you have to go through this process.
Yeah.
You found out
pay me later.
You found out some new news too that came up too, because we've had some clients that say, you know what, I'm not really using this business. It's 2024, but let's just go ahead and dissolve this business. That way we don't have to report it. Well, you found out, Mike, that even if it's in existence in 2024 and you try to dissolve it, or if you do dissolve it, you still need to have reported. They're being very strict on it. It's really a lot of the pressure that we're receiving globally from other countries who do this on a regular basis. And it's in an effort to mitigate and stop money laundering. And the United States has grown in its fame as being an alternative to this, unfortunately. And so this was really a law that was supposed to start in 2021 and has been in pause, or let's wait a little bit until they just couldn't wait any longer. And now it's in effect. And it's just right now, any company that was created before 2024 will have all of 2024 to go ahead and get this done. So we are helping a lot of people with that. But what a lot of people don't know as well is that if you created a new business, you only have, I believe,
90 days.
90 days, a new business in 2024, you have 90 days to do that. And in 2025, if you have, a vision to create a business there in that year, you only have 30 days. And if there's any changes, if maybe you change the address of the company, or maybe there's a new owner that you added or someone switches, just the information that you started off with, you originally submitted. Any changes to that need to be reported within 30 days. There's a lot of ticking time bombs associated with the Corporate Transparency Act and not filing your beneficial ownership information report on a timely basis. So if you don't have somebody on your team with a keen eye looking out for these things, you are going to probably fall through the cracks and find yourself, with your pants down, and then the federal government wanting, to, really get their due.
And let me just plus one on that. The federal government is not real quick to catch on and tell you, hey, you're late. So it could be December 31st, 2025, when they say, hey, you know what? You never filed your report that was due January 1. You owe us a whole year of $500 payments.
Right. You owe us $175,000.
Yeah. You did that math really quick. I think you've thought about that.
And ignorance is no excuse either. And that's the thing, is that, and nobody knows about it. So that's what we've been really trying to let people know, this grassroots approach, right? Grassroots marketing, and just letting our friends know, because our clients are our friends. They're part of our family, and we're going to treat them, like we would, and want to give you the heads up and trying to get the word out.
And because I know who your target audience is, Rich and Mike, usually we have a really good lobby, except not in this case. There are a few exceptions, but most of these are already highly regulated financial organizations that are exempt from doing this, being banks. Banks have their own beneficial owner report that I think you experienced recently, the hoops you have to jump through just to open a new bank account nowadays. But lawyers, our law firms, if they're business entities, we are required to file this report as well. Unfortunately, sometimes the cobbler's children have no shoes. So I would say to the lawyers out there, take a look at this, because it's something that's going to affect you and you've got to get it done. And we're very happy to help anybody. We're kind of expanding this. We're finishing up some little touches, which this API is a key part of it, to be able to expand it to nationwide.
There's two parts to this story. So the first part is, oh my goodness, as a United States citizen, I'm kind of appalled that I've got to do this and that the regulatory fines are so significant. However, having done business with other countries, I'm fully aware that other countries have had to do this for years. This has been standard operating procedure for them. So I shouldn't be surprised. But the secondary part of this conversation is that as a business owner, you guys who are already squarely in the business of working transactionally with businesses, they've created a new market for you. And that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. That's what being a business owner is all about. What I love about the two of you is that you fully recognize you're a law firm and you have responsibilities of a law firm, but you realize you're a business that happened to chose to sell legal services to the community in a way to benefit them. And the federal government has just helped you add another level of service. So congratulations to you for figuring this out, and not only bettering your business by doing that, but creating a venue for others to get help through these really questionable times when we're all not exactly sure what we're supposed to be doing, and taking it a step further and getting the technology connection through the API. I mean, if we thought this wasn't or was real before, we should now know, if the federal government is giving you an API into their document system to be able to file documents, we now know this is real, right? So MPS, any thoughts?
What can you say? I'm excited for you guys. Excited for the new market. It opened, and now it's got me going, thinking about different entities that I've ever had and making sure that they're covered, because it's kind of a crazy thought. I think for so long, you could get away. You could slide through a little bit easier. It wasn't as big of a deal. There wasn't as much necessary information that you had to get filed, and it's just pretty extreme. I also think there's a lot of people that are screwed, because I think there's a lot of people that have no idea this is even a thing, and we're going to hit 2025, and it's probably going to be a bit of an unfortunate time for many of them. And Mike, like you said, the government works slow. So I'm a little concerned for several businesses out there. But that, very insightful, very eye-opening, and really appreciate you guys sharing that. So where can they learn a little bit more about how to get in contact with you if they'd like to?
Kat?
Yeah, well, we certainly are ready to help folks. Right now, we have 2 offices. We are in Texas, and we service the South Texas area in Laredo, and we service the Central Texas area in New Braunfels. So you can go ahead and email us at info@dickersonlaw.com, and we'll be able to really just see which office works better for you. And if you are out of the state as well, be happy to talk to you more about it as well. But info@dickersonlaw.com will be the best way to get a hold of us.
And just a plus one on that, we have a lot of international clients that we've never actually met in person. So wherever you're at, if you email us at that email, we'll be able to take care of you from wherever you're at.
Yeah, well, we're in North Carolina and you do all our stuff. So it's not that you're only working and limited to Texas. So yeah, for sure. Well, listen, before we go, MPS, I think we want to let the audience know about the gentleman's agreement. Am I right?
Of course. Look, we love doing these podcasts. We're hoping you love listening and watching them. So depending on where you're listening or watching, make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. Turn those bell notifications on. Hit that like button. And of course, show some love down in the comments and let us know your thoughts on this new law and what it means for you down in the comments below. But Mike, Catalina, I appreciate both of you for being on today. This was a very insightful episode, and I'd be shocked if people didn't get a tremendous amount of value and definitely open their eyes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mike and Catalina, the fact that you're here speaks volumes about who you are, about willing to get the message out and your grassroots marketing approach. But more importantly, your willingness to give back to the community of law firm owners, give them that one little inside tip that was the tipping point for you to understand how to start taking the next step in your business. One, start understanding your numbers. Two, just pick up the phone and start calling your unconverted leads to get some immediate traction, which will trigger the next challenge that you have to uncover, and then you can continue to move forward as a business owner. So as your friends and as members of Partners Club and the way that you serve our community, I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for starting the new business that can help other business owners just like us manage through these new challenging times with the federal government law changes. And we appreciate you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Rich.
so much.
Of course. And shout out to the audience on 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for following along. We love you and love that you're loving this. Appreciate you.